All right, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to America Talks Live. Time for a little Malzberg's Media Madness. You like that? Tim Graham, Director of Media Analysis at the Media Research Center and Executive Editor at Newsbusters.org. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Oh, boy, do we have a lot of stuff going on. First, I want to start with Chuck Todd, who we played a soundbite of earlier, really saying that the Clinton Foundation needs to close down if she wins, so to his credit. But Newsbusters prominently featured a story the other day about Kristen Denny Todd, Chuck Todd of NBC, host of Meet the Press wife, who contributed $2,500 to Senator Tim Kaine in 2012, and her firm got millions from Bernie's campaign. He interviewed Bernie 11 times, and 3 recent interviews with Kaine never disclosed any of this.
Yeah, I think this is, again, NBC News here has a policy where you have a Sunday show host with a wife who's very active in Democratic Party politics. And you wouldn't know any of it because they don't disclose it. Now, he disclosed it when he interviewed the mayor of Washington, D.C. in 2015, that his wife was working on her campaign. And he disclosed it in his first couple weeks on Meet the Press when he did an interview with Senator Jim Webb. She worked for his campaign in 2006 to the Senate and actually did work on his short-lived presidential campaign as well. But this is just an ethical swamp, this idea that you can have a wife whose firm is earning $2 million from a presidential campaign while you're interviewing this guy 11 times. 11 times this year, 5 or 6 last year.
Wow. That is a blatant conflict of interest. And you said NBC has a policy. In other words, they don't have a policy, right?
Both Chuck Todd or NBC wouldn't speak to me on the record when confronted with this information. They're not transparent on this one.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Very troubling indeed. All right, now let's shift to Dylan Byers. You wrote this piece at Newsbusters today. Dylan Byers of CNN took to Twitter to defend journalists after a Washington Post writer, Paul Farhi, wrote a column talking about how these supposedly objective journalists are filling their Twitter accounts and tweeting out biased tweets. So let's put up some of the things that Dylan Byers then said. So this Farhi piece implying journalists show anti-Trump bias on Twitter is poorly executed for the following reasons. Then he says, the majority of examples are just clever assessments on what, by standards of American politics, is an incompetently run campaign. Number 2, the tweets don't show partisan bias so much as well-informed understanding of Trump's campaign failures or examples of perfidy. Okay, next. 3, reason these reporters don't tweet about Clinton running an incompetent campaign is because she's not running an incompetent campaign. So you get the idea. He's defending these journalists who are bashing Trump on Twitter.
Exactly. And this is always the excuse they fall back on. You know, I remember back in 1992, Andrew Rosenthal, who was then not the editorial editor, but a regular editor at the New York Times, was like, what are we supposed to say? George H.W. Bush is winning? And the reality is what they do is they beat on the Republican, they beat on the Republican, they beat on the Republican, and then when they're done, they say, we only are saying the Democrats ran a competent campaign and the Republicans' campaign was incompetent. That's baloney. You have spent months and months seeking to destroy the Republican nominee, and then you try to just say, these are just clever assessments of the horse race.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And last time you were on, I believe, we talked about Glenn Thrush, who, by the way, was on CNN the other day. I didn't hear any mention of this or acknowledgement of it, who, of course, tweeted or emailed, according to WikiLeaks release, John Podesta saying, I'm a hack. Here, is this column okay? And don't tell anybody. But another, his colleague, the White House correspondent, whose name escapes me at Politico, when there was talking about Trump's Jewish son-in-law going to bankers to get funding for a possible Trump TV, said that the son-in-law's parents survived the Holocaust to have their son create a TV network that will cater to Nazis. And again, he tweeted this out on his account, and he's a White House correspondent.
Exactly, yeah. Edward Isaac Dovere.
Yes.
This is one of those examples of what Farhi's talking about. And that is they put out incredibly nasty tweets and then want to make you think somehow this is an objective news outlet they're working for. Nobody's buying it.
Yeah, nobody's buying it indeed. All right, let's get to, it's Halloween. I don't know what you're going to do. What are you dressing up as on Halloween, Tim?
I'm an empty nester. I don't have to dress up like any.
Okay. Well, the networks featured NBC, the NBC, who else, featured a Halloween story, of course, bashing Trump. Let's watch some of it.
In order to get to the candy.
You got to have a passport. Do you have your passport with you, Kevin?
To get the candy?
To get the candy.
He's featured Bernie behind bars, Hillary riding a donkey, and his personal nemesis, Donald Trump, blowing smoke.
Is this the scariest Halloween house you've ever seen?
Well, he's the scariest presidential candidate I've ever seen.
There you go. And there was more to that story. It was written about on newsbusters.org. The video was included. People could go watch it there. But this is not an isolated incident, I'm sure.
You know, Katie Couric once dressed up as Donald Trump for the Today Show. That was cool back then,
right,
because he wasn't running for president. That must have been back at the time that he was funding the Clintons. But, I mean, yeah, look, it's just another shtick. You know, we have a study out that just showed you that 91% of the evaluations of Trump on these network shows, on the evening shows, are negative. It's more of the same.
Yep, absolutely. And you wrote a piece also yesterday about NPR, Fox bashing media reporter talking and taking delight in that confrontation between Newt Gingrich and Megyn Kelly. But I want to show you something else that you also have written on newsbusters.org, an example of the networks covering that. Let's watch.
And today at the hotel, Trump welcoming Gingrich like a conquering hero.
The GOP nominee clearly pleased with what he heard from one of his top surrogates, even if some Republican women are not.
They're losing their minds, and they're not acting like a campaign that's going to close strong.
Mitt Romney's former top aide tweeting, "Every time you talk about it like a Neanderthal, you push more and more women away from the GOP. So stop it."
Speaker, what do you say to the Republican women who saw that interview last night and are upset by it, frankly? What's your message to them?
I haven't seen that in Twitter. I haven't seen that anywhere.
He's just another bomb wiping out Republican women voters, not just for this cycle, but I think in the long term.
I got to tell you, I'm not a woman, but I think a lot of Republican women, I know a lot of Republican women are fed up with Megyn Kelly, and I think what Newt said was well-deserved.
Well, the whole thing underlines once again that the liberal media has a humongous double standard when it comes to women accusing men of sexual assault or harassment. You know, the point that Newt was making was, how come everybody cares about Trump's and not about Clinton's? That's still a good question. And when Nicole Wallace and these other people run around with their hair on fire, they're not acknowledging this should be a problem for the Clintons right now. Not 8 years ago, now.
Absolutely. Good stuff. It's all on newsbusters.org. Tim, we thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
All right.